Hello, everyone. Today we are going to discuss the match between Vladimir Kramnik and Gata Kamsky. This was National Chess Association and was formed in 1993 by Gary Kasparov and Nigel Short in protest against Fede, um, considering their wishes in staging the World Championship in Manchester, England. For more information about how my video series um, of the match between Boris Golko and Nigel Short, and just look that up in my channel. And I go into great detail about the formation and uh, eventual chess organization. So here, 1994, the PCA is still going strong, and matches were taking place in Trump Towers, who would be the eventual challenger to Gary Kasparov. And one of the matches was Kramnik versus Kamsky. Another was Oleg Romanishin versus Viswanathan Anand. Sergey Tivyakov versus British GM Michael Adams. So at this time, as long as the PCA had their sponsor, which was Intel, then the money was flowing and everybody was happy. So here we're going to discuss this match. But before that, I want to just say a few brief words about Kamsky and Kramnik. First, Vladimir Kramnik, who's still very much active. Kramnik was born in 1975, and some interesting notes about him is that his father's birth name is Sokolov, and Kramnik took his stepfather's name when his mother, or Vlad's grandmother, remarried. So Sokolov uh, is his surname, but again he changed it to Kramnik. He studied in the Botvinnik Chess School, and he was first reserve on the Russian team in 1992. Now he was 16 years old. He had no international master title or grandmaster title, but was just a FIDE master. And Kasparov supported his selection on the Russian Olympic team against protests. Of course, there were more experienced grandmasters and international masters. So why you're gonna pick this FIDE young 16-year-old FIDE master over uh, all these grandmasters? But Kasparov supported the selection, and therefore Kasparov got what he wanted. And Kramnik did not disappoint. He had scored 8 wins with no loss, and won the gold medal. Okay, and that was just the beginning of what was to come in Kramnik's career. In 1995, Kramnik served as Kasparov's second against Anand in their world championship match. All right, so Kramnik was a very strong player, always in the top three in the world, sometime number one, and by himself, and also sharing number one with Kasparov with the same rating at one point. Um, One thing that is interesting, however, is with all of his success, Kramnik before the year 2000, where he finally defeated Gary Kasparov in a match, is Kramnik did not fare well in individual matches. He had some early setbacks. He lost a match to Boris Gelfand. He lost to Alexei Shirov in a famous match in 1998, which was supposed to determine the world challenger, the challenger for the world championship. Shirov had won that and never received a title shot. And again, you can check out my video on that match, Shirov and Kramnik. Did Shirov was Shirov robbed of a title shot? And I go into great detail about what actually happened during that time and why Shirov never received a title shot, and let you decide whether he was robbed of a shot or not. So very interesting things going on. But yes, Kramnik before 2000, suffered a lot of losses in matches. He lost to Michael Adams in the match. Okay, so here we are in 1994. One thing I will say about Kramnik, and actually Nand said that Kramnik, um, you know, definitely contributed significantly to opening theory. Everyone knows him today for the bringing the Berlin defense back. But if you were around playing chess around the time when he was to face Gary Kasparov, first of all, Kasparov was favored, and then secondly, it was the Berlin defense was never seen. You hardly ever seen any grandmaster playing Berlin defense, or anybody for that matter. And I remember Kramnik playing the Petrov. That was another defense that he helped bolster up. Um, he's responsible for Gary Kasparov giving up the King's Indian defense. So Kramnik's stamp on opening theory is you know, definitely, he's still affecting everyone today. I think Anand had said something a while back that basically, uh, he felt like everybody's still playing Kramnik's openings. Basically, that's how much of an effect that Kramnik had on theory. Um, so now let's move over to Kamsky. Uh, Kamsky. Um, his full name is Gata, right? So of course Gata for short, but Gata Rustemovich Sabirov, which is his, as they would say, in New York, his street name. In the city they would say that was his street name, Sabirov. So Gatula Rustemovich Sabirov, and so of course the first question is, well, how did he get the name Kamsky? Um, Kamsky is actually derived from a stage nickname from his grandparents, because his grandparents were members of the Tatar Traveling Theater Group. So that's where Kamsky comes from, and it sounds cool, right? Kamsky, anything with SKY at the end sounds real cool to me, you know. Um, so that's how he got his name. Of course, Tatar descent. He won the Soviet Championship under 20 years old twice before 1989. At age 12, he defeated Grandmaster Mark Taimanov in a game, not a simul, but in a game. Um, in 1989, he moved to the United States with his dad, Rustem Kamsky. Um, so in 1990, he was a 16-year-old untitled player. And he played in the 64-player interzonal, which is the first step toward the world championship. And he finished 5.5 out of 13. So just like Kramnik, I mean, he's very strong as a untitled player. In 1990, he was awarded the Grandmaster title. So he went straight from just nothing to GM. That's how we all want to do it, right? No struggling at 1800 for 4 years, and then okay, now I'm 2000 for another 4 years. Okay, now 2200. Now back down to 2100. Nope, he went straight to Grandmaster title. Okay, 1991, he then won the U.S. Championship. So his career just up and up. At his peak, Gata was high as number 3 in the world. Um, Um, so he was just going up and up and up, and finally, after he played for the Fede version of the World Championship, remember the organizations had split at this time, so you had the Fede World Championship, which Karpov was the champion, and you had Kasparov with the PCA. So he played Karpov in 1996 in Elista. There's a good book written by Karpov and Ron Henley called the Elista Diaries. And after he lost this match, Karpov was still very strong at the time. Not near his peak, but still very very strong. Um, Kamsky retired from chess. He was basically inactive from 1996 to 2004. During this time, he went to college. He went to medical school for a year, but then he wound up graduating law school in Brooklyn. Um, In 1999, he briefly entered. That's why I said basically retired. But in '99, he entered the Fede KO tournament in Las Vegas, but he lost to Alexander Halifman, a very strong grandmaster, of course, and one of the quote-unquote Fede world champions. Remember, you had Halifman, Rustam Kazimjanov, and you had Ruslan Ponomaryov. Those were like your the Fide world champions, and I believe Anand was one also. But those were those knockout tournaments that nobody really gave that full, nod of credibility to. But anyway, so he came in '99. He beat Khalifman the first game, lost the second game, then wound up losing in the Rapids. And then he went back into hiatus. So '96 to 2004, basically. And then ever since then, he's still playing, here and there. You'll see Kamsky in tournaments. So let's get back in our time machine, and we're gonna go back to 1994 here, when Kamsky and Kramnik are both young men, 1 year apart from each other, and we're gonna look at this game, this brilliant game. Okay, Kramnik had the white pieces here. I'm sorry, I apologize. Game one, Kamsky has the white pieces, and Kramnik the black pieces. So let's get started. D4, D5, C4, C6. Yes, Slav from Kramnik. Knight C3. And we also saw the Slav from Kramnik in his World Championship match versus Topalov. But here Kramnik was younger and a little more ambitious here and played the semi-Slav. Now, in semi-Slav here, you have Bishop G5. And white can also play the move E3. And you go into the Moran, your Moran variation. And of course, E3 just deals with the fact that this pawn is actually ready to be captured. So E3 protects the pawn. And then, of course, the downside of that is this bishop is locked in positionally. So there's all kind of theory in this system right here. However, Bishop G5 puts pressure, puts the onus on black. It forces black to decide between two ideas. Either you're going to play Knight BD7, which is a little more like passive, and a lot of games go like that where you end up in a Cambridge Springs defense. For instance, Knight BD7, E3. Say Queen A5, Queen C2, Bishop B. You end up in these type of positions, these Cambridge Springs, which is very solid for black but passive, and white's usually able to sometimes sacrifice a pawn or something and gain initiative. Or black is well prepared and chooses to fight. And this is what Kramnik did. Kramnik at the time was he wasn't playing Berlin and these type of like old man type openings where he's just gonna try to win in the end game. He's playing very sharp. A lot of people don't know, he's played a Dutch defense. Also, he has some nice games. So here he played the sharp D takes C4 and E4, and this has been popularized by Botvinnik. And the basic idea that Botvinnik has is that after E4, B5, right? Botvinnik's idea is from the black side, is that B5 holds black's extra pawn on the queen side, and basically dares white to press him on the king side. So this is what happens: E5, H6, Bishop H4 is very provocative. G5, knight takes, H takes, bishop takes, knight BD7. This is all, of course, theory. Now, just want to give you, some insight. Now, on the original intentions of Botvinnik. Now, Botvinnik never had any intentions, because a lot of amateur players look at this and be like, well, what about Bishop E7? Botvinnik's intention was never to just try to get the pawn back. For instance, Bishop E7, E takes, Bishop takes F6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6. Okay, because after, say, like, these are just some sample moves. G3, bishop b7, just normal development. Bishop b2, knight a6, knight e4, queen e7, and let's do the double castle here. Castle, castle, a4. It gives white like a slight, slight initiative in this position. It's playable, of course, like with computers and engines, but the practice, I'm talking about, like, if you look at GM games over the years, you'll see that it yields white, initiative for it. So, for instance, white wants to open up the position here, and say black plays b4, right, to keep it closed. But now, boom, rook c1 with more pressure on the position. You see, so this is why Bobinick never had the intention on just grabbing that pawn back. And this is why you see the main line, knight bd7. Okay? And again, after knight bd7, which is what was played in the game, the main line, e takes f6. Again, his idea was never to try to snatch back the pawn. So if you're materialistic, don't, like to hold on material, don't play this. So for example, again, knight takes f6, then a4. Again, you try to keep the position closed. Knight e4, bishop e7, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, knight takes f6, queen takes f6, bishop takes c4, rook h4 with this attack on the d pawn. It's just simply castle, queen d4, bishop d3 now, bishop b7, and queen f3. All right, and white's position is superior here. Again, there might be like some funky engine continuations where black might be okay, but just again the practice, will show that white's position is all right, back again. Had to get rid of them dogs, man. The dogs were walking in the background. So anyway, again, we were just discussing Botvinnik's original, intentions, behind, this variation. So don't be in a rush to try to grab that f6 pawn by, a lot of newbies to this variation to try to get that pawn back. It's not about that. It's about the initiative, and especially in these kind of wild, irrational type positions. The initiative is what's going to carry the day. This exchanges get sacrificed. Um, Pawns get sacrificed. It's really wild games. Are seen in this variation on the regular. So, but most of the time it's about the initiative. So, always think that if you're playing this. This is too wild for my taste. I don't I don't like this kind of stuff. But anyway, so e takes f6, bishop b7, and even back in '94, there was an incredible amount of theory at the time. This is all theory, by the way. G3, c5. It's theory all the way up to move 24. Believe it or not. Queen b6. Bishop g2. Of course, black is planning on castling queen side. You're going to have this opposite wing attack here. Of course, it's dangerous because black is pushing forward that majority on the queen side, thus making his king more vulnerable as the pawns get pushed. And if white makes it to the endgame, he has that majority on the king side. Castle b4, knight a4, queen b5. A3, knight e5, and now here's the opening of the A file. A takes b4 and C takes b4. Alright. And now here we come to the move queen d4. Alright, now Now this move, Queen D4, at the time was was not a novelty, but it was kind of like a move that wasn't too common. But it was introduced 4 years previous in a correspondence game between two unknown players, Krauser and Gunther. And its basic theme is to sacrifice the queen for two minor pieces and an advanced passed pawn. So the game continued. Knight c6. Okay, from Kramnik. Gata takes the piece. D takes c6. And now rook takes d4. So there's your queen sack. C takes b7. There's a second minor piece. King c7. So what does what does white have in exchange for the queen? He has the two minor pieces. Um, Important minor pieces because those minor pieces are on the queen side where black's king is. So some defenders are taken away. And he has this dangerous passed pawn supported by the bishop. And as a result of the exchange of those two minor pieces, he also has the bishop here, which will serve to escort this pawn. Um, Now, looking at this position here, um, let's go on a few moves. Bishop e3. Okay, and here e5. So now, just looking at the position again, this type of position is irrational, and these type of positions take a lot of preparation because you can't really go on general principles. Um, Now, what we can say about this position is that white's pieces are more coordinated. So not only him having the two pieces for the queen plus the passed pawn is to me in itself is not enough. But what it is that beside those factors in the position, you have open diagonals, right? The G1 to A7 diagonal and the H1 to A8 diagonal are open and occupied by the white pieces. The A file is also open, right? And then the king is exposed, the black king that is. So when you add all those factors in the mix, with to me number one and two being the king safety of black being compromised, but also just the open lines and general peace, harmony, and coordination of white. To me, this is what gives white the edge and their sacrifice. Now, what I want to do is share with you comment from Gary Kasparov. Um, give him the credit in his book. He wrote in '94, Gary Kasparov's Chess Challenge. Um, Now, he says about this position. This position is quite well known to theoreticians. White has two minor pieces and a pawn for a queen, but the pawn at b7 is worth a great deal. In the Botvinnik variation, such irrational positions often arise and demand exceptional accuracy of the two players. The value of every move is exceptionally high. Kramnik's opening repertoire is splendidly polished, yet when employing such sharp variations, there is always the risk of being the victim of a problem-like idea. And it is something of this sort that occurs in the present game. So that's Kasparov eloquently saying what I was trying to say earlier about these positions taking on this like irrational character and how its accuracy is very important in preparation because it's very difficult to just follow general guidelines. Now, knight c3. Now, knight c3, he gives this move an exclamation mark. Again, this is all theory. This move, knight c3, was actually originated by Grandmaster Valery Salov. The piece sacrifice is basically forced here. Black must accept this piece sacrifice. For example, if queen c5, then rook takes a7, queen a7, knight b5 check. Right, you see the fork, king b8, knight a7, king takes a7, and rook a1. and it's going to be mate in 5 moves. Okay, so that's the first point, is that the sacrifice is forced. So the stem game, Salov versus Miguel Elesquez Cordoba, strong Spanish grandmaster, uh, followed the correct path. Um, so B takes C3. Salov played B takes C3, and then he retreated his rook. Elesquez retreated his rook to D6. Rook A B1 was played, although bishop takes A7 is very strong and basically forces queen takes B7, because how are you going to stop the promotion? So rook takes D6, rook A B1 was played. Excuse me, A6, rook takes, A takes, and then the other rook slid over. And anyway, Salov went on to win a fantastic game. So back to the game. So here is Kamsky employing the same idea, knight c3. And no doubt that Kramnik is also familiar with this idea. So Kamsky takes back, B takes c3, B takes c3, and now bishop c5 from Kramnik. So this is like Kramnik's improvement over rook d6 from Cordoba. So now, after bishop takes d6, just simply c takes d4. Very simple, right? Just take the rook. Simple and strong. I like those two words. Simple and strong. C takes d4. Bishop takes d4. And now rook fb1. Now this was possible also here, but just showing you how important every move is. Instead of, say, c takes d4, which we said was simple and strong. Now, if rook fb1, right, a real natural looking move, and say, you're trying to just get that extra, extra moving while attacking the queen, this move will cost white his entire advantage. Rook d1. Check. So rook takes d1 is forced, and now bishop takes e3. F takes e3. And queen b6. And just like that, of course, attacking this e pawn, and just like that, black is holding his own in the position. So, of course, Kamsky played the simple and strong. C takes d4. Bishop takes d4. Again, every move is important. If Kramnik played e takes d4, then simply bishop f4, king b6, and then rook fb1 is winning. So Kramnik played bishop takes d4, and now the rook slid over. Rook fb1. Sorry. Queen c5. Rook a6. And now rook b8. So, no doubt, again, Kramnik and his team analyzed it, came up with this idea with bishop c5, etc. And, probably felt comfortable at this point. But, again, this is like kind of early computer age in chess. So, this was at the stage where kind of some GMs were messing with the computers and some weren't. Some were still relying on just old school analysis and missing, tactical shots and things like that. And here, Kamsky just played bishop c1, and now it looks obvious the bishop is just going to a3, but it's too late to really defend against it properly. So from here on out, it's basically a strong attempt by Kramnik to try to save the position, but to no avail. So bishop a3, queen c4, bishop d6, and white's pieces are just too coordinated, too active. Bishop c6, king e6. Of course, that bishop can't be taken. King d6 just drops the queen. So king e6, bishop b5, bishop takes f2, king takes f2, queen d4, king f1, queen e4, rook went to e1, queen h1, king f2, queen takes h2, king f3, and of course he's desperately looking for some type of perpetual. So rook takes b1. Another try is queen h5, but after king g2, the same result. Black just runs out of checking opportunities. So rook takes b7 by Kramnik, bishop takes e5, rook b6, bishop c4, king d7, rook takes a7, king c8, and then rook c7 check. And Kramnik resigned here. The idea is after rook c7, king d8, rook d1, and black must give up his most important asset just to stay alive for a little bit longer. And then with those two bishops, the game will be over. So real nice game by Kamsky. A lot of people praise this game as some type of masterpiece by Kamsky, but the fact is that basically 24 moves or so with theory already. It was already well known. Okay, and then so basically it was like Salov already played knight c3, so he basically just followed that move, and then queen 19, queen d4 was already known. So yes, it was a good game, well played. I mean, much respect. So I give my hats off as far as the preparation is concerned, but to say it was some type of over the board inspiration and stuff like that is would be exaggerating. Instead it was more of like something that was already well known, and then the knight sack was well already known. Knight c3, and basically Kamsky found a twist in the position, and basically I think what was a shining achievement really in this game was that he was able to refute Kramnik's improvement, basically, because Kramnik had tried to improve over rook d6 by playing bishop c5, and then Kamsky refuted that. So who knows if he had already looked at that as an option or not, but he was able to still maintain and just basically show his class in that game. So that's it for the background in game 1 of the 94 PCA match between Kamsky and Kramnik. So please like, subscribe, donate if you will, and we'll see you